Namaskar. British industrial policy. To understand the British industrial policy, pre-independence industrial development of India can be divided in three periods. We are describing the accounts of these periods as follows. Period 1, 1850 to 1914. 1914 industrial development was to a great extent a byproduct of certain interrelated certain interrelated certain interrelated developments like improved transport and communication, growth of foreign trade, and a consequent accumulation of commercial fortunes. Railway, railway building and maintenance had effects more far-reaching than the opening up of the interior and exposing agriculture to the market economy. It released some of the latent potentialities for industrial development. The major features of industrial development in India during this period were as follows: one, the, de- the decline traditional handicrafts paved the way for the transformation of the Indian economy. Despite many difficulties, a better state of affairs was discernible so far as industrial activities were concerned. Educated Indians were becoming more and more eager to take to technical education. Capital was overcoming its proverbial shyness. Steam was fast replacing manual power, and serious attempts were made to start new industries. The beginning of joint stock enterprise was made, but the progress was slow. 3. The development of towns contributed immensely to the growth of the leading industries of India. Railway construction was a powerful factor determining the growth of towns in India. For the progress of for for the progress of industrial enterprises in India was linked up with the political movements at home and abroad. The American Civil War and the Crimean War, the Swadeshi movement, etc., all facilitated the industrial development of the country. Not only was there no planned effort to its industrialization, but the British government also adopted by and large a hostile attitude to industrial growth. Fifth, the industrial development of the country was greatly stimulated by the opening up of the Suez Canal in 1869 and by the network of railways which the opened up the interior to trade to trade. Improvement of an organ the improvement of the improvement of, improvement of an org, the improvement of an oceanic the improvement of an oceanic transport system encouraged the development of industries in India by facilitating the import of skill and machinery from abroad. Sixth, the development of Indian industries was lopsided in a character in the sense that only some light and consumer goods industries were started and no attention was given to the machine manufacturing and heavy engineering and heavy chemical industries and in other basic and key industries. 7. From the beginning, industries grew up only in certain localities, while other localities, although they had a high industrial potential, were not developed owing to the lack of proper planning. The location of industries in India was defective, which led to an unbalanced regional growth period. Second, 1915 to 1939. During this period, a number of events occurred that shaped and conditioned the pattern of industrial development in India. Among these, the more important were the First World War from 1914 to 1918 and the post-war boom from 1919 to 1920. The fluctuating exchange rates from 1921 to 27. The worldwide depression from 1929 to 1923. 19 from 1929 to 1930. From 1920 to 29 to 1900. From 1929 to 1933, the adoption of Congress industries in many provinces. It was also during this period that the Indian Industrial Commission 1916 with Sir Thomas Holland as chairman, the Fiscal Commission with Sir Ibrahim Rahimullah as chairman, the Royal Whitley Commission on Labour 1920, and the Central Banking Inquiry Committee 1930, the External Capital Committee 1925, and the Taxation Inquiry Committee were appointed to make a thorough inquiry into respective fields. Up to the First World War, the opposition of the British government to industrial development in India was open and unconcealed, but the First World War proved an eye-opener to them. First, when the war broke out, imports from foreign countries had completely ceased, and this brought home the need for developing in India seriously industrially. Secondly, it was necessary for the British rulers to make certain political and economic concessions and promises of concessions to secure the cooperation of the Indian people during the war and in the disturbed period following the war. The economic concessions took the shape of a proclamation by the government to the effect that in future industrialization would be promoted by all means. Thirdly, foreign competition had been affecting British import in India. It was felt that the growth of some of industries within India was better than foreign competition displacing British import. These considerations had led to the appointment of the Industrial Commission and the mun, munitions and the munitions and the munitions board. The munitions board helped the progress of indigenous industries in various ways, such as one, the direct purchase of India-made articles and a direct purchase of India-made articles and materials of all kind needed for the army, the civil departments, and the railways. Second, the diversion of all orders from the United Kingdom and elsewhere to manufacturers in India. And third, assistance to Indian farmers in importing plants or technical experts from abroad. In fact, the board gave considerable stimulus to certain established industries like cotton, jute, iron, and steel, leather, etc. But once the war and the fear that the British Empire might be endangered, endangered over might be endangered over but once the war and the fear that the British Empire might be endangered were over, the concessions in favor of industries were withdrawn. By the middle of 1920, industries were again subjected to the full force of competition. The Fiscal Commission 1922 recommended a policy of discriminating protection to be administered through an expert body called the Tariff Board. Altogether, 13 industries they received protection, and this enabled a few of them to establish themselves on a sound footing. At the same time, large amounts of British capital were exported to India for the Indian industries. This was an extremely difficult situation. This, this difficulty was aggravated by the policy of devaluation adopted by the government. The rupee exchange rate was fixed 1 as 60 in place of other pre-war rate 1 as 40. How damaging to Indian industries this series of blows were can be realized from the fact that the market value of the RS-100 share of the Tata Iron and Steel Company, and an outstanding leader of the Indian capitalist class, tubbed down to RS-10, and it was compelled to go to the London market for a loan. Tariff policy which gave British products an advantage over Indian Empire products in the Empire market now became the keynote of the tariff system. However, there can be no doubt that in spite of the difficulties and obstacles which India had to face, there was a considerable progress in industrial developments during this period. India was placed as one of the 8 leading industrialized countries of the world. The production of cotton, piece goods in the country increased 2.5 times, that of steel ingots rose 8 times, and of paper went up to and a half times. In the case of sugar, India became self-sufficient within a period of 4 years, from 1932 to 1936. The cement industry produced about 95% of the total requirements by 1935 to 1936. Other industries like matches, glass, vanaspati, soap, and a number of engineering industries also witnessed increased production. A beginning in the manufacture of electrical equipment and goods was also made by 1938 to 1939. Period 3, from 1940 to 1950. The Second World War broke out in 1939. The war found India somewhat better prepared and equipped than during the First World War, but as compared with the level and variety of demands imposed on the economy, the situation was not very different. Cotton, jute, and steel remained the principal items of war, and procurement through large orders for for ammunition shells gave engineering factories and railway workshops some huge useful experience of mass production. The, the Second World War the Second World War gave a considerable impetus to the development of industrial potentials. Its contribution to actual expansion was not equally great. After an initial setback caused by stoppage of trade and disruption of shipping, an upward trend was established, which lasted till 1915 and then pet, pet, then petered out the very next year. Those industries which were already in existence worked to full capacity. New plants were added in several cases, and a few basic industries were established. The index of industrial production rose from 102.7 in 1939, that is 1937 equals to 100, to 120 in 1945. The major increases were under steel, chemicals, paper and paints, while jute, matches, sugar and wheat flour remained depressed. The production of major industries could not on the whole be said to have increased substantially, through higher prices and profit margins did bring about unprecedented prosperity to industrial enterprises and managements. Capital equipment was exposed to considerable wear and tear. Maintenance and replacement were neglected. Coal and transport bottlenecks remains a serious threat to output expansion throughout the year. The immediate problem for industry after the war was to make up the damage caused by excessive wear and tear and lack of maintenance. A worldwide shortage of machinery and shipping, political disturbances and blocking of sterling balance made it difficult to launch any major industrial expansion after the war. The partition left India with nearly the entire industry of undivided India. The partition left India with nearly the entire industry of undivided India. Major modern industries. The Industrial Revolution brought forth the need for developing industries on a modern line. In order to develop British industries, it was essential to transform Indian manufacturers too. As part of it, changes were introduced in agriculture and railways were developed. Railways were developed with the initiative of Lord Dalhousie in 1853. The company led the railway line in the country to export from the interiors to ports and vice versa, to reach out the imports to the markets in the remote regions of India. Railway helped in making possible production for a market and opening up the interior to large-scale operations. The encouragement to cash crops led to the growth of plantation economy, wherein profitable crops were especially cultivated for marketing purposes. Among the industries that were made possible by the railways was the cotton mill industry. The first successful Indian cotton mill started in 1853 in Bombay. Later, cotton mills were established at Sholapur, Ahmedabad, and Madras. Likewise, jute was cultivated was a cash crop, and the first jute mill was set up in 1855 in Rishra in Bengal, followed by many such mills. The British also encouraged the infrastructure industry. They were aware that the cheap labor was easily available in India, and that this was a potential they could exploit. Also, the procurement of raw materials and mineral resources from India made it necessary to develop these industries in India too. The first iron mill the first iron mill was set up in the Jharia coal mines area in 1873. Similarly, other industries such as glass, paper and leather industry were set up by the British government in India for serving their own purposes. Labor and trade union movements towards the end of 19th century. Before the Indian nationalist intelligentsia began to associate itself with working class agitations towards the end of the 19th century, there were several agitations, including strike by workers in the textile mills of Bombay, Calcutta, Ahmedabad, Madras, and so on, in the railways and in the plantations. However, they were mostly sporadic, spontaneous, and unorganized revolts based on immediate economic grievances, and had hardly any wider political implications. In Bengal, one in Bengal, Sasi Pada Banerjee, a Brahmo social reformer, set up a workingman women club in workings Workingmen's Club in 1817 and brought about a monthly journal called Bharat Shramjeevi, that is Indian labor, with the primary idea of educating the workers. In Bombay, N.M. Lokhande brought out an Anglo-Marathi weekly called Dina Bandhu in 1880 and started the Bombay Mills Hand Association in 1890. He took the initiative in organizing protests against working conditions obtained in factories. 3. The first organized strike by any section of the working class was the Signalers strike in May 1899 in Great Indian Peninsula GIP Railway, and the demands related to wages, hours of work, and other conditions of service. The nationalists newspapers such as Tilak's Maharatha and Kesari came out fully in support of the strike. For for the Swadeshi upsurge of 1903 to 1908 was a distinct landmark in the history of the labor movement. The number of strikes rose sharply, and many Swadeshi leaders enthusiastically threw themselves into the tasks of organizing stable trade unions, strikes, legal aid, and fund collection drives. Four prominent names among the Swadeshi leaders who dedicated themselves to labor struggles were Ashwini Kumar Banerjee, Prabhat Kumar Roy, Chaudhuri Prabhat Kumar Roy, Chaudhuri Premtosh Bose, and Apurva Kumar Ghosh. The Madras Labour Union, founded in 1918 by B.P. Wadia, was the first modern trade union organization in India. Four prominent names among the Swadeshi leaders who dedicated themselves to labour struggles were Ashwini Kumar Banerjee, Prabhat Kumar Roy, Chaudhuri Premtosh Bose, and Apurva Kumar Ghosh. The Madras Labour Union, founded in 1918 by B.P. Wadia, was the first modern trade union organization in India. The All India Trade Union Congress (AITUC) was founded by nationalist leaders on 31st October 1920. The first session of the Congress organized at Bombay was presided over by Lala Rajpat Rai, and Diwan Chaman Lal was its general secretary. The Gaya session of the Congress 1922 adopted a resolution enabling party workers to participate in trade union activities. In 1926, the Trade Union Act was enacted, which gave legal status to the trade union and laid down conditions for registration and regulation of trade union activities. Fifth, the Madras Labour Union, founded in 1918 by V.P. Wadia, was the first modern trade union organization in India. Sixth, the All India Trade Union Congress (AITUC) was founded by nationalist leaders on 31st October 1920. The first session of the Congress organized at Bombay was presided over by Lala Rajpat Rai, and Diwan Chaman Lal was its general secretary. Sixth, the All India Trade Union Congress (AITUC) was founded by nationalist leaders on 31st October 1920. The first session of the Congress organized at Bombay was presided over by Lala Rajpat Rai, and Diwan Chaman Lal was its general secretary. The Gaya session of the Congress 1922 adopted a resolution enabling party workers to participate in trade union activities. In 1926, the Trade Union Act was enacted, which gave legal status to the trade union and laid down conditions for registration and regulation of trade union activities. 6. 7. With the growing communist influence in attack from 1925 onward, the moderate groups under N.M. Joshi withdrew from the attack and formed the All India Trade Union Federation (AITF) in 1929. The Vitale Commission on Labour or the Royal Commission on Labour under the chairmanship of Whitley was set up in 1929 to inquire into the existing conditions of labour in industrial undertakings and plantations in India. The commission submitted its report in 1931. Meanwhile, the communist turned radical democratic leaders seceded from the attack and formed a pro-government union called the Indian Federation of Labour. In 1944, the national leaders led by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel organized the Indian National Trade Union Congress. धन्यवाद. Thank you so much.